Okay. So let's do the prayers together. Om
Om
Medha Shiva
Samaramбhaṁ Shankaracharyaṁ Asmadacharyaparyaṁ
Asmadacharyaparyaṁ
Vande
Vande
Guru
Guru
Paramparam
Saraswati
Saraswati
Namastuभ्यं
Namastuभ्यं
Varade
Varade
Kamarupini
Kamarupini
Vidyarambam
Vidyarambam
karishyami
karishyami Siddhirbhavatu
Siddhirbhavatu
me sada
Om
Om Sahana
Sahana
Bhavatu
Bhavatu Sahano
Sahanau
Bhunatu
Bhunatu Sah
Sah
Veeryam
Viryam
Karavavai
Karavavai
Tejasvinavadvitastu ma
Tejasvinavadvitastu
vidvishavahai
Om
Om
Shanti
Shanti Shanti
Shanti
Shanti
Shanti Vasudevendra
Yogendram
Nattva
Nattva
Pradam
Pradam
Guru
Guru
Mumukshu
Hitarthaya
Tattvabodha
Tattvabodho vidhiyate
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Okay, so which topic were we doing last class?
Atma.
Atma. And we began with this statement, Madhyam Shariram. Basically, the gist of this is that what is possessed by me cannot be me, right?
Yes.
So, what belongs to me is not me. That is the understanding. And by extension, whatever is experienced by me is also not me. This is the Drik Drishya technique. Whatever is experienced by me is not me. The external world is experienced by me, therefore it is not me. My body is experienced by me, therefore it is not me. Even my mind is experienced by me, therefore it is not me. The experiencer is always different from the experienced. Okay? And you, as Atma, are always the experiencer and never the experienced object. So, this is the understanding, this is the logic. And then the student had asked the question, what is this Atma? And the teacher had answered, Satchidananda. And we were discussing the word Chit. So one more important thing here is that Sat, Chit and Ananda, you have to remember that they are not three attributes of Atma. It is not like that. Why? Because Atma is Nirguna, attributeless, beyond attributes. Okay, so we cannot ever say that Atma has three attributes and they are Sat and Chit and Ananda. That is a wrong statement. So but for the purpose of explanation, for understanding, we need something, right? So we look at these three aspects. Finally, you will see that they are actually not different. Sat is Chit and Chit is Sat. Where consciousness is there, there is existence, and where there is existence, there is necessarily consciousness. Okay, so this understanding is there. And of course, they are inseparable from Ananda. And what exactly is Ananda? In today's class, we're going to see. So these three aspects are there. Sat, Chit and Ananda. And Atma is of the nature of Sat, Chit and Ananda. Okay. Of the nature means it is its own nature. It is inseparable from it. Now we were looking at the Chit part, and we said Chit is the consciousness principle. And we saw 5 points regarding this consciousness. We will revise them now. Now remember that this word consciousness is synonymous with Atma in this context, meaning you can replace consciousness with Atma and all of these statements are still valid. So instead of reading this first line as consciousness, if I read it as Atma, it is still correct. Okay, consciousness or Atma is not a part, product, or property of the body. Atma is an independent entity that pervades and enlivens the body. Atma is not limited by the boundaries of the body. Atma continues to exist even after the death of the body, and this Atma is not accessible because of the absence of the body medium. To reword it, the body medium is very much necessary in order to cognize Atma. Okay, so these 5 points we saw, and we saw it with the example of the electricity and the fan. So all of these statements hold good for electricity and fan example, just to help you understand. But of course, you must remember that all examples are limited, and so is that example too. Now, this 5th point, just to add one more, little bit more information about this. So this surviving consciousness is dependent on the body mind sense complex, the body medium, just like how the fan is dependent on the electricity, right? And the fan or any medium is required to identify electricity. To know whether electricity is there or not, you require some object. In the same way, you need some medium to know whether to cognize or to access this consciousness. Now, frequently, people get this question that if Atma is one, we keep saying, no, Brahman is one, Ekam Brahman, and all these things. So, if Atma is one thing, if there is only one Atma, then why are there so many jivas? Why are there so many bodies? Right? We get these questions. And more importantly than all of that, if we are all one Atma, why do all of us behave differently? We all have different personalities, different behaviors, and not just among human beings, but among the species also. Human beings are very different from dogs. Dogs are very different from plants, and so on, right? So we all behave differently. Does this mean that Atma is changing? Does this mean that Atma keeps varying in all these different bodies? So the answer is no. It depends basically on the nature of the medium. So if you take the electricity example, why does the fan rotate and why does the bulb glow? Why can't the fan glow or the bulb rotate? What is the answer to this?
Because the nature of the medium is to glow, or the fan is to spin and rotate, and the bulb is to glow.
Yes. Right? So the device determines what happens. The medium decides in what way it shows itself. You understand? So in the same way, this Atma does not change. Atma is still one. But because the body medium is different, the body mind sense complex is different for every individual, it appears as though this Atma is different. Okay? So it depends on the nature of the body medium. The electricity is the same, right? Nothing is happening to electricity in the fan and the bulb. Electricity is one and the same. But they behave differently because the nature of the fan is different from the nature of the bulb. In the same way, the nature of the body-mind sense complex decides in which way this Atma consciousness is reflected. Okay, so this is an important understanding. Now, we also discussed last class that this consciousness can never be experienced. Okay, even for a jnani, even at moksha, consciousness is not something to be experienced. It is aprameya. Can never be the object of experience. Why? Because what is experienced is not you, and what is you can never be experienced. Okay, the example we said is of the eyes trying to see the eyes. You can never see your own eyes, because with what will you see your own eyes with, right? So in the same way, Atma, the experiencer, is the subject. It is the very entity by, or the very entity that is the witness. And there can be no further witness of this. So that is why it can never be an object of experience. So this is something that you have to understand very carefully, very correctly, that Atma can never be experienced. In this Advaita Vedanta school, we say that even at moksha, you cannot experience Atma. Okay? All of this is intellectual understanding only. Okay. So coming back to okay. So we saw this equation also last time. We said what is mine is not me is what we are calling anatma, which we saw in the previous topics, all the sthula sharira, sukshma sharira, the panchakosha, avasthatraya, all these things we said are anatma. They are mine but not me. So what is me? Me is atma. And that atma is nothing but chit. And this chit we are calling as consciousness. Okay. You know, interestingly, the word atma in Sanskrit, it means myself. We always think, I've seen many books where atma is translated as soul and other things in English, but the word atma means myself or me in Sanskrit. So this is another clue in the Shastra that this consciousness is what you are. It's not different from you. Now, in the Upanishads, there are different Mahavakyas that appear. A Mahavakya is basically a statement that talks about the equality of you and Atman. Okay, so whenever I say I am Atma, this is a Mahavakya. It's basically an equation. It's a relationship. It's a short statement that gives the relationship. There are hundreds of Mahavakyas in the Upanishads. 4 of them are kind of famous, and these 4 are listed here. So the first one says Prajnanam Brahman. The translation is consciousness is Brahman. Second one is Ayam Atma Brahman. This self, this Atma is Brahman. Again, remember, Atma means me, but also we sometimes use it in a different, you can use it in different contexts. So here, Atma is Brahman. Then we also have the statement, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. And Tattvamasi, you are that. That here refers to Brahman. So you are Brahman. So consciousness is Brahman, Atma is Brahman, I am Brahman, you are Brahman. Okay, these are the statements. So since Brahman is the common denominator in all of these equations, we can rewrite it like this. U is equal to I is equal to Brahman is equal to Atma is equal to consciousness. Okay. So Brahman is not different from Atman, not different from you, not different from me, and all of this is what? Consciousness alone. Okay. Any questions till now? Okay. So now basically we have entered into the crux of the study from this point on. And the entire next portion of whatever you study will be this analysis. What is this consciousness? What is this Brahman, Atman? What is the relationship of each of them with each other? Is there, first of all, a relationship of each of them with each other? For a relationship, you need two things. Are there even two things? So these kind of enquiries will begin. And not just in Tattvabodha, but as you progress to Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, the whole study is this dissection. Okay. Now coming back to the Tattvabodha text, the student had asked the question, Chit Kim? And the teacher had answered, Jnana Swarupaha. Jnana Swarupaha is to be understood as consciousness principle. Here, the word jnana, you have to take it to mean chit or consciousness or chaitanyam. So, it is of the nature of consciousness. Why jnana swarupaha? Because this is the aspect that allows knowing, thinking, all these possible. The very fact that I can say I am a conscious being today, I am a self-aware, I am a self-conscious being is because of this Jnana Swarupaha. This consciousness is borrowed from Atma. Okay, and Atma is of the nature of consciousness itself. So this is about Chit. Next, we get the student's next question, which was Sat. Sat Kim? And the teacher had answered, Kalatrayepi Tishtatiti Sat. So when you break the words, Kala, Traye, Traya, Api, Tishta iti Sat. So basically, this statement means that Sat means that which exists in all the three time frames. Kalatraye, three frames of time. Kala is time, Traya is three. So three time frames. Which are the three time frames?
Past, present, and
Past,
future.
present, and future.
How can Sushupti and Jagrata, Sapna and Sushupti?
No, those are states of experience. I am talking about time.
Oh,
Past, present, and future.
Yes, past, present, and future. Is there any time that you can think of other than the past, present, or future?
No.
No, right? If it is time, it either has to be in the past or in the future or right now. So there is no time frame beyond these three. Kalatrayepi. So it includes all these three. Tishtati. Tishtati means established or exists. Iti Sat. That is Sat. So Sat is that which exists in all the three time frames. And that is why it is the existence principle itself. Okay. So everything else comes into existence and goes out of existence, right? The body is born and then the body dies. The planet is here for some time, then the planet is also destroyed. So basically, it means for all of these impermanent objects, existence is a borrowed quality. I think we may have discussed this once before, that anything that comes and goes is a borrowed quality, and that which is permanently with that object, that is its swarupa, the borrowed nature and the intrinsic nature. Like the heat of the fire is intrinsic nature. You cannot remove them, you cannot separate them, and it's not like the heat of the fire comes and goes. You cannot say, oh, right now the fire is not hot. Fire is always hot, right? Whenever there is fire, it is always hot. You cannot say right now, oh, the heat has gone, it will come back after some time. You cannot say that. But you can make that statement with water, right? You can say the water has cooled down now. We have to heat it again. And once you heat it, you know that the heat will leave again after some time. Meaning heat is a borrowed attribute for the water. Okay, so anything that is borrowed, anything that comes and goes is a borrowed quality, and anything that is intrinsically available, that is its own nature. So for the whole world, existence is a borrowed quality. Why? Because it comes and goes out of existence. But for Atma, it is an intrinsic quality. Okay, it is always there. It is its own swarupa, its own nature. Okay, and this is told many times in many texts. In Bhagavad Gita also repeatedly it comes. One of the very famous twisted shlokas is Nasato vidyate bhavaha na bhavo vidyate sataha. Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 16th verse. Lot of detailed analysis and discussion in that particular verse. Okay, about how Atma is always present. It is always Sat. Okay. Any questions about this? Okay, so Sat is independent existence, and this independent existence is what supports all other existence. So with this we have finished Sat also. So that same 5 points that we discussed for consciousness, you can apply it for existence also. Okay, so if you read, it will be existence is not a part, product, or property of the body. Existence is an independent entity that pervades and enlivens the body. Existence is not limited by the boundaries of the body. Existence continues to exist even after the death of the body. This existence is not recognizable because of the absence of the body medium. So the same 5 points you can even apply to the existence principle also. Right. Then, now we come to the last one, which was Ananda. So the student had asked Ananda Kaha. Out of Satchidananda, we have finished Satanchit, now Ananda. And the teacher replies, Sukha Swarupaha, of the nature of Sukha or happiness. Now this has to be understood carefully and correctly. Generally, happiness, what we call Sukha, is an emotion that comes and goes. But here, this we are not talking about exactly that. Okay, because that happiness is finally just an emotion, and of course it just comes and goes. But here, this is not the idea. The word Ananda has to be understood as Ananta Ananda. Ananta means limitless. So basically, this Atma is Ananta. Now, we have discussed before that there are usually two kinds of limitations: space limitation and time limitation. All objects in the world are limited by time and space, including your own body. An object is born and then it dies, right? And it occupies some amount of space. It cannot be in two places at once. But this Ananta, this Atma, is without any boundaries whatsoever. It is not bound by space, nor is it bound by time. So we already discussed in Sat, Trikale api tishtati. It is present in all the three time frames, and it is not bound by space also. Okay, so you cannot ever say that Atma is only here and not there. It is all pervading. So a lot of people go to, Kailash and Vaikunta and all these places and say God is in Kailash. But we as Vedantins will never say God is in Kailash. Any idea what is the correct statement?
God is everywhere.
God is within us.
No. Use the
Kailash is in God.
Kailash
Use
is
the same statement, God is in Kailash, just rearrange or do some little manipulation with it. What would be the correct statement?
Kailash is in God.
Okay. God is in Kailash also.
Oh, okay.
It's not God is in Kailash only. It is God is in Kailash also. Meaning it is there everywhere else and also here. In other words, there is nowhere where it is not there. Okay. All pervading, sarvagataha, sarvavyapi. These words you will come across in Bhagavad Gita as you, especially the second chapter. So as you go through, you will find these topics getting a revision. Okay, so this Atma is there everywhere. It is Ananta. It is complete. It is boundless. Purnaha. Purnaha means complete. This infinitude or this limitlessness of Atma always expresses as happiness. Limitlessness always expresses as happiness. Only when there is a lack of something, that expresses as sorrow. Only when you feel a lack of something, it expresses as sorrow. Okay. This is an important understanding. Now, it is the human condition. It is the nature of our, how we are, that we feel apurnatvam most of the time or all the time, almost everybody, right? We always feel incomplete. We always feel something is missing. And this is the cause of our restless behavior. This is why we go on searching for things. In today's world, it is always about the next experience, the next object. We believe that acquiring more and more objects make us feel makes us feel happy. But we don't understand that that happiness is temporary. Why is that happiness temporary? Because that object itself is temporary. How can any impermanent object ever give you permanent happiness? It itself does not have permanency and it cannot offer you any kind of permanent satisfaction. Okay? This understanding we need to develop. And there is one more point, that no number of finite objects will ever become infinite. Acquiring even a large number of finite objects is not equal to infinity. Even in maths, when you add a bunch of finite numbers, you may get a very big finite number, but a very big finite number is not infinity, right? So we feel that we can achieve expansion by acquiring objects, but this is a false notion. This again eventually leads to more and more problems, but it is not the solution. Okay, so this Ananta, you are already that. We just need to realize and understand that I am Ananta. But because of avidya, the Moola avidya, I have forgotten or I don't know what is my own true nature. Because of that, I keep running around in circles, searching for external objects to satisfy me. But it will never bring satisfaction, because satisfaction is not something to be achieved. It is who you are. It is your very nature. It is just that you don't know, and that is why all the problems. Okay. So this sense of incompleteness is what expresses as desire and eventually leads to sorrow. This lacking feeling is what we call as sorrow. So the opposite, I am infinity, I am everything. When you are infinity, when you are all pervading, what more is there to acquire? Right? And so this expresses as happiness. And that is what the author means by Sukha Swarupaha, of the nature of Sukham or happiness or bliss. Okay? This Ananta will only happen, or the benefits of this Sukham will only happen when the identification shifts from this body, mind, sense complex to this Ananta Atma. The more I claim that I am the body, I am the mind, the more problems I will face in life. But the more and more I de-identify from this and claim that I am Atma, I am Ananta, then these problems go. And that is what we call as moksha. Shifting this identification from this anatma objects to the atma, that is moksha. Okay, so at moksha, you don't experience Brahman, you don't experience lights or sounds, you don't experience, any mystical, magical things happening. It is just that you have firmly and completely shifted your identification onto this Satchidananda Atma. Okay, and so there can be no attaining even moksha for that matter, because you are already Brahman. How can you attain what you already are? It's not possible. The only thing is that you just don't know it, and through correct understanding, the wrong notions are removed, and that is moksha. Okay. Any questions?
My small query, like Brahman actually is what?
Atmakaha.
Is Brahman. But from where this word has come, what is its
Yeah.
identity? Yeah.
We will discuss
I'm-
what is Brahman and what is Atma, why we are using two words.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the next section that's coming up.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions regarding these three, Sat, Chit and Ananda? Okay, so always remember that whenever you hear this word Atma, Ananda in association with Atma, it has to be understood as Ananta Ananda, the happiness associated with being limitless. Nothing,
Medha ji,
nothing more to do. That is why. Yes.
Medha ji, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
You just said that the shift in identity,
Yes.
a firm and complete shift in identity through correct understanding is Satchidananda. So this understanding is from the is by the intellect.
Is, yes, using the Shastra and the intellect. You need both. Shastra is a pramanam, intellect is the tool with which you understand. Okay, even if one is not there, it doesn't
What I
work.
wanted to say was
Yeah.
that to understand, for this shift to occur, we still need anatma.
Yes. That is the paradox.
More confusing.
You have to eliminate the anatma using the anatma. That takes time. That is why the process takes time. But the correct understanding comes only from Shastra. This has to be remembered. Shastra is the pramanam for all of this. Without Shastra pramanam, there can be no moksha. It's just like how without eyes, there can never be sight. Without Shastra, there can never be jnanam. Okay. And for that jnanam, you also need intellect. Both are required. But finally, you have to remember that what we are calling as Shastra, that is also mithya. What you are calling as intellect, that is also mithya. And both have to be negated in order to realize the paramarthik. Okay. So, this happiness, remember this happiness is associated with limitlessness or infinity. So, the same 5 points you can apply to happiness also. Happiness is not a part, product, or property of the body. And this is not happiness, the emotion, okay? This is Ananta Ananda. Happiness is an independent entity that pervades and enlivens the body. Happiness is not limited by the boundaries of the body. Happiness continues to exist even after the death of the body. Happiness is not accessible because of the absence of the body medium. Okay? So what you were talking about is the 5th point. This is not accessible without the body medium. But it is not the body medium. You have to use the body medium to negate the body medium. That is the trick. And the negation, remember, can only be intellectual. You cannot physically eliminate the body and then say, I want Atma, right? You have to only intellectually negate the body and the mind and the intellect itself. Okay, so with this, we have finished the second topic of Tattvabodha. What was the name of the second topic?
Vyashti
Shri
Vichara.
Vicharaha.
Vyashti Vichara or Jiva Vicharaha, which means analysis into the individual. Okay, so we till now everything that we looked at, we were discussing related to the individual. So when we talked about all the different sharirams, the panchakosha, all these things, we were talking about the individual. And now in the third topic, we are going to talk about the universe or the totality. So there is microcosm and there is macrocosm. So now we are going to move on to the macrocosm discussion. And that is called as Srishti Samashti Vicharaha. Okay, Samashti Vicharaha. And this is the concluding statement of the author for the second topic. You can just read this. Evam Satchidananda Swarupam
Evam
Satchidanandasvarupam
Svatmanam Vijaniyat.
Swatmanam
Vijnaniyat.
So the author says, know that this Satchidananda Atma is you yourself. Okay, Vijaniyat means to know, and Swatmanam means you yourself or me myself. So this Satchidananda Swarupa, this nature of Satchit and Ananda, that is me myself, know that. So this is what the author says as a concluding statement. And with this, now we can move to the third main topic or third main chapter of Tattvabodha. Yes. So it is called as Samashti Vicharaha. The word Samashti means totality or macrocosm. So from now on, we are going to be talking about things from the universal point of view. Till now, we were talking about the individual point of view. Now, universal or totality point of view. So now let's read this. Atha Chaturvimshati
अथ चतुर्विंशति
Tattvopatti
Tattvotpatti
Prakaram Vakshyamaha.
Prakaram Vakshyamah.
Okay. So the author says, Atha. Atha means now, hereafter. So basically it means till now we've finished some portion, some topics, and now from now we're going to do something else. So we have finished two major topics. Now hereafter we're going to do something else. So Atha. This Atha, so many of you may be familiar. It occurs frequently in many of the texts. So Yoga Sutras starts Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Even Brahma Sutra starts with this Atha Brahma Jignasaha. So this word Atha means that till now you were expected to have been doing something else, and now you have come and you are starting this thing. And in Brahma Sutras, just the first four shlokas, the first four lines are there, right? Volumes and volumes of works have been written just on the first four sutras. So that is how extensive and exhaustive it is. The very word Atha, it will go on for one book, the analysis. Okay. So Atha means hereafter. Here, of course, it's just simple hereafter. Then he says Chaturvimshati. Chaturvimshati means 24. 24 what? Tattva. Tattva means basic principles. Okay. So 24 basic principles. He says, Utpatti prakaram. Utpatti means to be born or to generate. Prakaram means methodology. So the methodology of birth or the methodology of creation of 24 basic elements, now we are going to discuss. So this Vakshyamaha means we will tell you. Now it's interesting to note he uses Vakshyamaha and not Vakshyami. Vakshyami in Sanskrit means I will tell you. Vakshyamaha means we will tell you. So who do you think the we is here?
The scriptures and the
Scriptures.
Guru.
Okay.
No, Guru Parampara.
The Guru Parampara.
Guru Parampara.
So when he says Vakshyamaha, he is referring to the Guru Parampara. So he's making it very clear that this is not his personal opinion or idea. Okay, all of this, what he's teaching, it's not something he invented, nor did he come up with it, nor is it his just some idea of his. This is from the Guru Parampara itself. Okay, so his idea is that we, when he says we, it refers to all the gurus of the Parampara. So he says, we will tell you. This is from us. So basically, he's telling the mouth may be mine, but the words are from them, from all of us. So this is just to, another highlight towards the Guru Parampara, acknowledging that this knowledge has been passed down and it has been taught to me by my teacher, who was taught by his teacher, and so on. So just to acknowledge this idea, he says Vakshyamaha. Now, what are these 24 elements or 24 tattvams that he is talking about here? That we will see a bit later. But basically now he's going to talk about the creation of the universe. How this whole universe came about. Now we are going to discuss this. Now, before the creation of this universe, there were two entities, two factors. Okay, the two things were Brahman and Maya. Two things, Brahman and Maya. Now first, Brahman. What is Brahman? So this is the answer to the question that was just asked. What is Brahman? Brahman is Atman. So why are there two names? It is the same entity, but we have two names from two different points of view. For example, suppose there is a person who is at home, he is the head of the family, right? But let's say he is also the prime minister. So he is the head of the country also. Now at home, they will call him father. And in the office, they will call him prime minister. So from two levels, he has two different names, but he as a person is one and the same, right? So this is the same difference. When we are talking at the individual level, we tend to use the word Atma. And now that we are talking at the Samashti level, the totality level, we will use the word Brahman. But remember that they are the same entity. It is not, please don't ever get this idea that Atma is a part of Brahman. No, it is not a part. They are the same thing. It is just two different names from two different viewpoints. Just like father, prime minister, but person is the same. So another way to help you understand this is, let's take this bottle. Now let me ask you, is the bottle in space or is there space in the bottle?
It is bottle in space.
So there's no space in the bottle? If there's no space, how do I fill it with
There
water?
will be. There will be, but if you see grossly, it is bottle in the space And there is some vacuum or space in the bottle.
Okay. So basically, both the statements are equally valid, right?
Yeah.
There is bottle is also existing in space, and also there is space inside the bottle. So when this bottle is here, there is an inside the bottle and outside the bottle, right? The space within this is called inside, and outside this is called outside. Now suppose I remove this bottle from here. Now tell me, is there inside and is there outside? Suppose I say now, in this space, there is inside and outside. Is that relevant? Does it make sense?
No.
No. Now I bring the bottle back and I say inside, outside. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
So the words inside and outside become relevant only because of the walls of the bottle, right? Only because of the boundary offered by this bottle, there is a seeming division of space where you can say inside and outside, right? Space seems to have been divided into inside and outside only because this bottle is there. If I remove the bottle, it makes no sense to say inside or outside. There is only space. Now, tell me one more thing. Can space ever be broken or divided?
No, it's not possible.
It is impossible to break space, right? You cannot hold it in your hand and try to break space. This division of space that comes up because this bottle is there inside and outside is only a superficial division. It is only an apparent division. It only appears as though space is being divided into inside and outside, but actually nothing has happened to space. Space is one, right? Space is unbreakable, indivisible. It is one only. All space is only one. It only appears to be divided into inside the bottle, outside the bottle, inside the building, outside the building, and all these things. The division is only superficial, it is only apparent. There is no real division or breaking of space. Is this concept, this idea very clear?
Yeah.
Right. If this idea is clear, then you will understand the difference between Atma and Brahman very easily. The word Atma becomes relevant only when the body walls are there. This consciousness within the body walls is called as Atma. But really, Atma has not broken, has not been divided, it is not a part, it is the same as Brahman. But in the context of the body mind sense complex, the consciousness within that body mind sense complex is called as Atma, just like the inside and the outside. But really, all space is the same. So, Atma and Brahman are also the same. All consciousness is also the same. Now, do you understand why we have two words, Atma and Brahman?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, this Atma Brahman, these two words are used interchangeably throughout. Okay. So, whenever you come across Atma or Brahman, always remember we are talking about the consciousness principle. That is what it is. It cannot be broken, cannot be divided in any way whatsoever. And so, even if we are talking about consciousness within this body framework, we are still talking about that consciousness principle. Okay.
Okay.
Now, we'll just read this line. Brahmashraya
Brahmashraya
Sattvarajastamu Gunatmika
Sattvajastumo gunatmika
Maya Asti.
maya asti.
Okay. So, Now we were talking about two things, Brahman and Maya. So here there is Brahman and here there is Maya. The two words are there. So before creation, there were two things, Brahman and Maya. Brahman is of course Atma, is consciousness principle. Maya is what we are going to discuss now. This Maya, actually we have seen it before. It is nothing but Karana Sharira. It is nothing but the potential form of the whole universe, the seed of the universe. Now remember the law of conservation, right? It says that nothing can be created, nothing can be destroyed. So there is only a transformation, there is only a change of state from avyakta to vyakta and vyakta to avyakta, right? This avyakta, we said it is unmanifest, not available at all for any kind of perception or investigation. And vyakta is what we see around us right now, the manifest universe. Okay, so this avyakta state, this potential existence, we are calling that as Maya. So, in some philosophies, in some other schools, especially the Yoga and Sankhya school, they have a similar concept. There they use the words Purusha and Prakriti. Okay, so that Purusha and Prakriti is somewhat can be correlated to Brahman and Maya, but there is one very important fundamental difference. So both schools will say that this Brahman Maya combination is required for creation. There also they say this Purusha Prakriti required for, both are required for creation. But one very important fundamental difference. There they say that both this Purusha and Prakriti, or this Brahman and Maya, are two infinite principles. But as Vedantins, we don't accept this statement because it has a very big logical flaw. What is it? Why can you not say that Brahman and Maya both are two infinite principles?
There are two. You're saying there are two, dual.
So,
Infinite can be only one.
why?
Because it is limitless. It has no beginning, no end.
So what happens if there are two?
One would clearly have to end. So one would be finite for the other to be
Yes.
infinite.
Exactly. No, both would become finite.
Both would become finite, yes.
Yeah. Both would limit each other. Whenever you say two infinite principles, it is logically inconsistent because there can never be two infinite things. Infinite means what? Limitless by both space and time. If you say there are two such things, then both automatically limit each other because one must end somewhere and that is where the other must begin, right? Which means there is a boundary there, which means it is not limitless. So there can never be two infinite entities. There can only be one infinite entity. And so that is why, as Vedantins, we don't accept the statement of Sankhya and Yoga when they say that Purusha and Prakriti are two infinite principles. We say there has to be only one infinite principle. And for us, that infinite principle is Brahman. Okay? For us, that infinite thing is Brahman. It is only one thing. So then Maya is now dependent on Brahman for existence. Okay? That is what the word Ashraya means. Brahmashraya Maya. This Maya is there, which is dependent on Brahman for its existence. And I hope you remember the Satyam and Mithya topic we discussed, what exactly we mean by dependent existence. Just like how the table is dependent on wood for its existence, the same way Maya is dependent on Brahman for its existence. Okay, table and wood, remember, they, the table is inseparable from the wood. The table can never exist independently from the wood. If I tell you, you keep the wood, give me the table, it is not at all possible. But the wood can exist independently from the table. If you just remove the form of the table, wood is still there, right? You will just call it wood that time. You will not call it table. So this nama rupa, name and form, is nothing but this mithya, this maya. Okay, this maya is dependent on Brahman for its existence. Brahman is Sat, everything else is mithya. Okay, Shankaracharya's very famous statement, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. This is what it means, that only Brahman is Sat, everything else is Mithya, dependent, and actually there is no difference between Jiva and Brahman. You are that Brahman. So this is the main idea. We'll stop here for today and then we will understand more about what role this Brahman and Maya play in the creation, for creation to happen. This we will see in the next class. Any questions? Okay, we'll stop with the prayers. We'll do Purnamada now. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat. Thank you all and see you next week. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Medha ji.
Thank you, Medha ji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Medha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.